This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
And Bob Holt with us from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Always appreciate some of his time on Thursdays, and maybe no other time more important than game week. First week of the year, Arkansas is in action. Cincinnati on Saturday. Bob, how you doing? You got to be fired up for football, and sometimes I'm not quite sure how I can tell if you are fired up or not, but a yes or no would let us know.
Yeah, no, it's an exciting time. After covering practice for a month or whatever it's been, I mean, obviously we're not like the players out there hitting on each other and sweating in these 80, 90-degree days. But, everybody's, I think, excited about football. Arkansas, on paper, looks like it's going to have a real good team. It's just a big opener versus Cincinnati, first time since I think Arkansas played Texas on Labor Day night in 1980. I remember being in college and watching that game. Texas edged Arkansas. I think it's the first time Arkansas has opened the season as a ranked team versus a ranked team, so that's obviously unique. In recent years, they played Georgia a couple of years ago with the SEC-only schedule. They opened at Auburn, I think maybe in 2014, but, as a non-conference game, and they've played some, great openers like USC a few years ago here. But for Arkansas to be ranked and Cincinnati to be ranked and coming off a playoff season, and it really, realistically, you couldn't ask for a much better opener than this for Arkansas.
We got a call earlier. Charlie asked, how do you see the game started? Do you think Arkansas and Cincinnati will try to run against each other and therefore guard against the run, which might open up the pass for both of these teams? And watching Arkansas as much as we have, and reading all about Cincinnati, watching them a little bit last year, and hearing what the coaches are talking about. I mean, they kind of, I don't know if these teams necessarily are mirror images of each other, but they certainly try to do a lot of the same things. Is your sense that each team will maybe bring an extra player up to guard against the run, and that both teams will try to establish that run early, or do you think you might see something different?
Well, I mean, they both have very experienced offensive lines, and, of course, Cincinnati will be breaking a new starting quarterback. I think it will be the senior Ben Bryant, who started Cincinnati, was there 4 years, went to Eastern Michigan last year, is back in Cincinnati now because Desmond Ridder finally moved on to the NFL with the Falcons, I think it is. But, I think, Arkansas, veteran offensive line, KJ Jefferson's obviously a great running quarterback, really good passer, too. They've got good running backs with Rocket Sanders. Dominic Johnson, I don't think is going to play. But, A.J. Green's in there, some other backs. And so, I think KJ kind of getting him in there and, getting hit some, because obviously he hasn't been hit since the Penn State game. At least he shouldn't have been in practice. And so I think when KJ kind of gets rolling with the running, and then you get the passing game going, open things up. So we'll see. I mean, they might play action on the first play or something. Either team could do that because everybody probably expects a run. But, I expect as much as football's changed over the years and rules and all that, usually it's still a team that can run the ball and establish a line of scrimmage that wins. So I think and Cincinnati's got a nice rotation of running backs too, so some good tight ends. So I think you're going to see both teams trying to be physical to start off, kind of set the tone physically with their running game.
We have people on the show. We have Clay on the show, you, other folks, and Drew and I and Maddie. We just sort of this is what we think might happen because nobody knows. Nobody knows. You haven't seen them play. This iteration of Arkansas is different from last year. Same with Cincinnati, and both coaches in their media availabilities this week have spoken to that. They'll say this and that, and then they'll say, you know what, you just don't know because you haven't seen them play. You're going by tape from last year if you're going by tape. From a writer's perspective, it's not just this last month at preseason camp. It's spring ball. It's everything, leading into this game is all talking season. It seems it's all guesswork or educated guesswork when we ask you this or that. So, you only get a chance to watch 20 minutes of practice. You don't necessarily have a true sense of what this team is about. You're just going by what the coaches say. So from a writer's perspective, now, you actually get real football to write about. And now our opinions can kind of form on what we're seeing instead of what we're hearing.
Well, openers are always unpredictable. I think any coach is worse than anything is concerned about every game. But I think especially openers, especially when you're playing a team you feel like you're pretty evenly matched with. This isn't a team. You look around the country, you got a lot of teams opening up with teams they're favored to beat by 3 or 4 touchdowns or whatever the case might be. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing as long as you're playing some other good teams. But yeah, this is not your typical opener, honestly. But I think both teams have probably had an extra sense of urgency to training camp. Not that they wouldn't have worked harder, been focused, but I think when you're playing another ranked team, I mean, this could really set the tone, certainly for Cincinnati. I mean, you look at their schedule, and this is really by far the biggest game on their schedule. I mean, they're not playing Notre Dame this year. Arkansas kind of replaced Notre Dame on their schedule, I guess, in terms of playing, somebody really noteworthy. And if Cincinnati wins this game, they could run the table. Looking at their schedule, I'm not saying they will, but they could, and they could be fighting for a playoff berth again, depending on how the computers rank them or people rank them, and obviously it depends on how the playoff committee ranks them. But for Arkansas, obviously they don't want to lose, but if they lose this game, they've got a lot of opportunities against highly ranked teams to get back in the national picture. Losing to Cincinnati at home would obviously not be a good way to open the season, but I think people have to understand Cincinnati's really good, and they shouldn't be shocked if Cincinnati could pull an upset. I think it'd be a mild upset on the road. I think Arkansas is about a 6-point favorite. So, yeah, openers are always unpredictable. Arkansas and Cincinnati both have a lot of key players back. They got a lot of guys, who haven't been in this position before too, and you just don't know how those guys are gonna operate. I mean, some guys are better, they're gamers, so to speak. They're better with the lights on. Although I guess they won't have the lights on for the afternoon game, but some guys play better in games than they do in practice. Some guys are really good in practice and maybe don't play as well in games. So Arkansas obviously knows they have players like KJ Jefferson and Bumper Poole and a lot of other guys. Jalen, it's going to be big to get Jalen Catalon back. He's almost like getting a new player, like a guy in the transfer portal, because he missed the last 7 games last year. He didn't play after October, I don't think. The Ole Miss game was his last game, I think, where they realized he was just so beat up that he had need to have surgery, and really it wasn't in anybody's best interest for him to keep playing. But, yeah, these openers, they're very unpredictable, and, special teams really come into play, and you worry about, Arkansas is going to have a new snapper, and, you worry about that a little bit. I'm sure Cincinnati does the same thing. You got punters who are brothers, the Fletcher brothers on both sides. Although we don't know if Max Fletcher or Reed Bauer will be Arkansas's number 1 punter. They might both punt. Who knows? But, there's just so many unknowns going into an opener. Coaches, this is why they get paid the big bucks.
Now, Bob, I don't know how much you've paid attention to Cincinnati over the last few years with Coach Fickell there, or really, how much you've heard him talk, but I'm guessing you've probably watched the press conference too. What has been your opinion about Luke Fickell and kind of what he's talked about with the Razorbacks in his press conferences throughout the week?
Well, I guess he only had the one press conference on Tuesday, but yeah, he's what you'd expect. I mean, looking at his resume, I don't think he's ever lived outside the state of Ohio. I think he's from Ohio, went to high school in Ohio, played at Ohio State. Then he coached at Ohio State. I think he coached at Akron. Then he's coached at Cincinnati. That's why I'm really not surprised that he hadn't left. I mean, I don't know, people might have said, he might go to Oklahoma, he might go to LSU, he might go to Ohio State, whatever. I'm sure he would have taken the Ohio State job, or at least I assume he would have. But, they obviously hired Ryan Day. But he's just, you think about a Big Ten type Midwestern square jaw, that I think of Luke Fickell. I remember him being a coordinator at the Sugar Bowl when they played Arkansas. He's just, Ohio tough, and you think about Ohio football. I'm talking about the state of Ohio football, and he talks very respectfully about Arkansas and how tough KJ Jefferson is, and facing a quarterback like that who's so physical and can run over people, and what a hostile environment it's going to be. Like I said, these guys won at Notre Dame last year. I mean, a lot of those players are gone. They won at Indiana last year when Indiana was still playing pretty well. Last time they opened up on the road in 2018, they won at UCLA. UCLA didn't have a very good team that year, but still they went to the Rose Bowl and beat UCLA to open the season. That's pretty impressive to me for a team. I think that was only Fickell's second year. Maybe they were coming off a 4-8 season. His first year, and ever since then, they've won 11, 10, 13, whatever. But no, I think he's a very fundamental coach. He's basically like a Big Ten coach at Cincinnati. and of course he's taking them into the Big 12. And my guess, I think he's 50. My guess is I can't. I mean, the guy's lived in the state of Ohio his entire life. I don't really see him leaving Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't either, unless the Buckeyes head coaching job comes open. Let's stay with coaches. Let's go to Sam Pittman. I heard him talk in his press conference the other day about the differences from year 1 to year 3. Just what are some of the main things that you've seen him kind of grow more comfortable and really get better at as a coach from, his time here at Arkansas?
Well, of course, he got thrown in the fire. I mean, he gets the job. I think he was hired in December, and then within about 3 months, COVID shutting everything down. So you think about, he took over an SEC program. He's a first-time head coach. He's a career offensive line coach. Nothing wrong with that, but he was, he was the exception to the rule. Offensive line coaches very rarely get head coaching jobs, especially in the SEC. Coaching job in the SEC at a program that's been 0-16. I guess 1-23 in the SEC the last few years, and then COVID hits. Mm-hmm. And he's trying to get to know his players and trying to probably know some of his coaches. Obviously, he knows some of them really well, like Barry Odom, but I don't think he probably knew Kendall Briles well, if at all, before he decided to hire him. I think Barry Odom had a lot to do with that, too. And so here he's coming in, it's really on paper, looks like an impossible situation. All SEC schedule, and then the new schedule comes out, and they add Georgia and Florida. It's like, what have I done to piss off the SEC office if you're Sam Pittman, or Arkansas? And yet against that schedule, they go 3-7, should have been 4-6. I think we can all agree that Auburn, that's a game they should have counted as a win with what happened in the last few seconds. And they very nearly 5-5, didn't get to go play in a bowl game because TCU had a COVID outbreak. But, you look at what he did under those circumstances. I thought that was a heck of a year. When you take everything into consideration, and then last year obviously going 9-4, so I think it's been incredible what he's done here as a new head coach, and I think he's probably more comfortable in his own skin and making decisions, and coaching the coaching staff, which is kind of what a good head coach should do, and leading the team. So I don't think he lacked confidence coming in, but I have to believe he's got a whole lot more confidence after what he's done and what the team's done the last 2 years.
Yeah, and the fans certainly reflect that too, Bob. But that also goes along with the expectations of, at least putting together something like you saw last year. Might not necessarily be 9 wins or, a 10th win in a bowl game or a Florida bowl game, but, success is supposed to beget success. So, that the whole love affair that I think everybody is feeling and is probably a part of right now, it's still based, like Coach Pittman says, all the right things. And I think he means those things too. But it's all based on the number of wins that this team puts up. I mean, it was the same with Coach Nutt. Would have been the same with Petrino if he'd have stuck around. So, all the right things can be said and all the right attitude and everything. But you know what this sport is like, and it's like the job security sometimes is going to come down to. Unfortunately, they'll call it which way the ball bounces, which essentially means how you played in really close games, and that's what it comes down to.
Well, I think they're going to have a lot of close games. So I keep coming back to my feeling is they could have a better team than last year, but their record might not be as good. It might be better. I'm not saying they can win 10 games or whatever. I just think, looking at the schedule, that's a big ask. It's a really tough schedule. I honestly think there are 10 games that could go either way. I'm not saying they can't beat Alabama, but you have to make Alabama a prohibitive favorite, not just against Arkansas, but probably against anybody in this league, unless it's Georgia. And then Missouri State, which I don't think will be an ezy game at all. I think Bobby Petrino come in here and throw the kitchen sink in. And people have to remember last year, Missouri State opened the season at Oklahoma State and lost, I think it was 23-16, played them within a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And Oklahoma State went on to, I think, won the Fiesta Bowl, beat Notre Dame, had a great season. And so, that will not be an easy game in my opinion. But that's a game Arkansas, on paper, should win. The other 10, I'd favor them to beat South Carolina probably. They might be an underdog, Mississippi State. Those other 10, I think, could go either way, and it probably comes down to who's healthy that week for each team, and turnovers and just maybe some crazy plays that we all know can happen in the SEC. So, it's the margin for error. The difference between going 10-2 and say 7-5. I think it's pretty thin.
BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, and events with first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to join today and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50. BetOnline, where the game starts.